You know how we always think that to get massive success, we need to take some kind of massive, earth-shattering action? Well, what if that's just completely wrong? In this explainer, based on the work of James Clear, we're going to uncover a way more powerful path. And it all starts with a change so small, you'll barely even notice it.
To really get this, let's talk about a team that was, for all intents and purposes, the definition of mediocrity. I mean, an organization so consistently bad for an entire century that they were literally an international laughingstock.
But then, around 2003, something just shifted. They didn't suddenly get a huge new budget or a team full of superstars. Nope. Instead, they adopted this new philosophy, a really strange, almost obsessive focus on the smallest, tiniest details.
So, the team I'm talking about, it's British Cycling. Their performance was so bad, so dismal, that one of Europe's top bike manufacturers actually refused to sell them equipment. Can you imagine that? They were afraid that just being associated with the team would permanently wreck their brand.
And then this guy, Dave Brailsford, enters the picture. They hire him as the new coach, but he wasn't like the others. He wasn't focused on some single grand transformation. His whole approach was something else entirely.
And this, right here, is where everything changes. Brailsford brought in this concept he called the aggregation of marginal gains. Now, the idea itself sounds pretty simple, but the way they applied it, it was absolutely revolutionary.
So what is it really? At its heart, it's about breaking down every single thing you do in a process and then improving each little piece by just 1%. The whole theory is that these tiny gains, when you add them all up, lead to something, well, remarkable.
As Brailsford himself said, the whole goal was to hunt down that 1% improvement in absolutely everything. They started with the obvious stuff, redesigning bike seats, rubbing alcohol on tires for better grip, but they did not stop there.
And this is where it gets kind of crazy. It just shows how deep they went. They tested different massage gels. They hired a surgeon just to teach the riders how to wash their hands properly to cut down on getting sick. They even figured out the perfect pillow and mattress for each athlete to get the best possible sleep. I mean, nothing was too small. And the result of all this? Within 5 years, they were completely dominating the sport.
Okay, a cycling team is great, but how does this actually apply to us? Well, this whole idea of small gains, it really challenges a core belief most of us have about change, this myth that it's all about willpower. We've been told our whole lives, right? If you fail to change, it's because you're weak, you lack self-control. But there's this incredible study from the Vietnam War that tells a totally different story. During the war, researchers discovered something really shocking about the US soldiers who were stationed in Vietnam. A pretty significant chunk of them had developed a really serious drug habit.
In fact, when they dug into it, the research showed that more than 15% of these soldiers were addicted to heroin. And at the time, heroin was considered this thing you could never, ever escape from.
So you can imagine this caused a huge panic back in Washington. All the experts were predicting this massive wave of addiction as soon as these soldiers set foot back in the US. But what actually happened? It defied every single expectation.
When the researchers tracked these soldiers, what they found was that an incredible 90% of them, they just stopped.
9 out of 10 of them kicked their addiction almost overnight, just by coming home. They didn't go through years of rehab. They didn't show some heroic feat of willpower. The addiction just kind of dissolved.
So what does this tell us? It wasn't about a sudden burst of self-control. The addiction wasn't some moral failing. It was a response to a very specific environment. And this is the real key to getting those 1% gains. You have to become an architect of your world so that good habits are just the easiest thing to do.
Think about it. In Vietnam, soldiers were surrounded by all the cues for drug use. Constant stress, super easy access, friendships with other people who were using. But back home, all those triggers were gone. The entire context changed, and so the habit just broke.
And this leads to such a powerful insight. Those people we think of as disciplined, they're not heroes with some kind of superhuman willpower. They're just better at designing their lives to avoid tempting situations in the first place. They are architects of their environment, not victims of it.
Okay, so how can you actually become an architect of your own environment? The final piece of this puzzle is all about making your progress visible, and more importantly, making it satisfying.
Let's look at the story of Trent Dursmed. He was this rookie stockbroker working in a small suburb. Nobody really expected much from him, but he made absolutely incredible progress using this surprisingly simple daily habit.
Okay, so here's how it worked. It's so simple. Every day, he started with 2 jars on his desk. One was filled with 120 paper clips. The other? Totally empty. After every single sales call he made, he would physically move 1 paper clip from the full jar over to the empty one. His bowl had nothing to do with the outcome of the call. It was just about the action of moving all 120 of those clips by the end of the day. This gave him a super clear, visual measure of his progress and a really satisfying feedback loop that just kept him going.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. The secret isn't some massive, painful life overhaul. It's about finding your 1%, designing your world for success, and making your progress visible. So the question for you is, what is that one small, simple, trackable action? What is your paperclip that you can start moving today?